What's going on, guys, and welcome to the Setting the Optimal MCAT Study Schedule lesson. I'm really excited to go through this lesson with you guys because setting a study schedule for the MCAT is actually going to be one of the most important things that you can do in your prep. You want to have some structure with your prep and work on setting small, achievable goals every day, and then more macro goals for your week, and then even bigger ones overall throughout your MCAT studying, so that you can continue to build momentum and see exactly what you're working for and track your progress. So setting a study schedule is really important. For me personally, schedules have always helped reduce my stress when taking on busy workloads, which the MCAT, as I'm sure you all know, definitely is. So before we get into that, though, I want to talk about three key factors that should go into your studying in general, and then we're going to talk about how to work this into your specific MCAT schedules. And the first part is that you definitely need to have some sort of content review. So the MCAT is a ton of content, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about why it's so important to do other things like practice questions and whatnot, but you obviously still need to get the basics down. So within every single day of your study schedule, there's going to have to be some sort of content review built in, whether that's a review company's books such as Kaplan or Princeton Review, Next Step, whatever it is. I think the Kaplan and Princeton Review books are pretty thorough, and I definitely recommend getting those. The Kaplan books have seemed to be highly rated among students recently. Or it could be something like the Khan Academy videos, where you are watching the content online. I tend to learn a lot better from videos than reading textbooks. So for me, I know that I would put more focus on the videos, but no matter what, you're getting some sort of content review done. And I also want to make it clear that there is no right way to review the content. You don't have to feel like you have to go through and read every single word of every single textbook with a highlighter. If that's not what works for you, then don't do that. You obviously, there's going to be a lot of reading involved, but like I said, for me, I learned a lot better from watching videos, and the Khan Academy videos are pretty thorough. Other companies have their own content videos, although, again, you'd have to pay for those, and I really don't think any of them are any substantially better than the Khan Academy videos, which is free and in collaboration with the AMC. So you choose whatever's best for you, but whatever it is, every day you got to be reviewing content. Number two, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see students do not or make during their MCAT prep, is that they don't do questions early on. And questions are extremely, extremely important because they're going to be actively testing not only the content and helping you solidify it to memory, but they're also going to start requiring you to critically think like the way the AAMC wants you to for the MCAT. And it's never too early to start this. It's okay if you feel like you don't know any content and you're definitely not going to get the question right. That's perfectly fine. You just want to start to get into the habit of doing questions, seeing what they're like, and seeing how you can use what you know and what is given to you to try to get to the answers. Also, with these strategies that you're going to be learning throughout this course, and if you get any of my other courses, the biochem or the chem phys or the psych social one, or the overall course with all 4 sections that will be coming out hopefully soon, then you will be able to start practicing these strategies early on, which is definitely going to benefit you even if you don't know all the content, because half the battle with the MCAT is critically thinking and knowing how to take the test. The other half is, of course, the content. And then number 3, another really important fact that you want to bring into your study schedule is repetition. So what a lot of students will do is, again, let's say you get to a chapter, you read it, and then you move on to the next chapter, or you go from chapter 5 of Chem Phys to chapter 6 to chapter 7, and so on. This is going to help you get through the material quicker, but it's honestly not going to help you get through it in a deeper, more thorough sense. So anytime you do some sort of material, you want to have repetition with it. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, if you do chapter 5 in the Chem Phys section, let's just say that's acid and bases, you don't want to just read it and then move on. That's just going to give you surface level understanding. You want to repeat that material in as many ways as you can, in whether that's a single day, a week, and obviously over the course of your MCAT prep, you're going to be hopefully getting through it in a bunch of different ways. But you'd be surprised how many students really just try and read all the books and then feel like, okay, I've gone through all the content, let me take a couple practice tests and then take the MCAT. The MCAT is really a major test. It requires a lot of studying, and so you want to get in that repetition time and time again. So for a single day, I might, let's say, do acids, bases by reading the textbook chapter associated with it. Then I would watch Khan Academy videos on it, and then I would do practice questions, and then review those practice questions, and then use my resources such as the videos, the books, and honestly Google. A lot of times Google is really helpful to try and solidify any gaps in my understanding. So that is what we're going to be building into our schedule on a daily basis. I want you to remember these 3 key things: content review, we got right here, questions, and repetition. Alright, so let's try building a schedule as if it's a typical maybe day over the summer where you don't have any other requirements except for MCAT review. And I'm going to be building three sample days for you. One will be what I just described, let's say a day you're just starting your review, maybe it's the very beginning of the summer. The other one will be trying to study while you're also in your semester of classes and how you would work around that. And then the last one is going to be a sample schedule for the weeks leading up to the MCAT, what you should be doing then, because that's going to change a little bit rather than if you're a month or 2 or even 3 out. Alright, so let's take a look at the schedule here. And as you notice, I have this template. You guys, because you have this course, are all going to get access to this template, which is really nice because if you see here, so right now we have a start time at 7 a.m. I personally like to get up pretty early and study. That's what works for me, and I definitely recommend trying to get on the schedule because the MCAT is given early in the morning and you're going to have to wake up early to take that test. But let's say you wanted to wake up a little early or start your day a little early, you could actually change this to 8 a.m. and then if you see on the left hand side, all the times change accordingly. And then also, I have it broken down into 30-minute intervals because I think those are good intervals for study blocks. I think it's a pretty good thing where let's say you do a set of 10 questions and review it, that usually takes about 30 minutes. Sometimes, let's say I could watch 2 or 3 videos in those 30 minutes, and really I know myself, that's when I'm going to be the most focused. If I could focus in for 30 minutes at a time and then switch over to the next topic, that's going to be best for me. And I think that what I found is that seems to work pretty well with most of my students. Now, obviously, the MCAT's a 7-hour test, so we really have to build that up. So what we're going to be doing is, even though it's broken into 30 minutes, I want you guys to try and do 3 30-minute intervals of prep, whatever that may be. You maybe take a 1-minute break in between each 30 minutes, but basically I want you to be practicing going for an hour and a half at a time before taking your first 5 to 10-minute break, because that is essentially what you're going to have on each section on the MCAT, which is an hour and a half. Alright, so 8 a.m., but I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves right now because we're waking up for, let me switch it back to 7 first. And at 7 a.m. we're going to call this wake up and breakfast. So definitely want to get up, do your morning routine, whatever that may be. If you have breakfast, like just a cup of coffee, do your typical morning routine that you feel like you're going to be doing on the day of the MCAT. Alright, so now let's just say, I'll put in library here because I'm going to go and drive to the library. Let's say, for me, when I was studying, I would drive to my local public library, and that's where I would do all of my work studying for the MCAT. Maybe you are doing yours in your basement. I would try not to do it in your room. I know a lot of students like to study in their room, but it's really it's a lot easier to get distracted in your own room where your bed's 5 feet away. So if you have a really good study set up in your room, or you really know yourself and know you can stay focused, then by all means go ahead, but I would try to get to a different study space if possible. Alright, so let's say 8 a.m. we're going to be actually starting our prep, and maybe we want to start off with a chapter of Chem Phys, a review chapter. Let's say it is chapter 5, so read Chem Phys, and I'm not putting a specific company name here, but it could be any of those big companies' review books. So read Chem Phys, chapter 5. So you would put that in your schedule. And I've noticed that the chapters generally take about an hour, so I'm going to put that in again here. And then one more thing that a lot of students like to skip over is for most review books, at the end of each chapter, there is generally a set of review questions, and you definitely want to do those review questions. Again, if you go back, number 2 is questions. So these are not always MCAT style like, they're more just questions that you would kind of see on like a university exam, but they're still going to help you reinforce the material that you had just read about in that chapter. So you definitely want to do it. Don't skip over this part. I know by the end of the chapter you get tired and you kind of want to just move on because you feel like, all right, I just got through the material, but if you need to take a quick break, do that and then go and hit those questions. So I'm going to say questions here. We'll say chapter questions. And what's even more important than that is review the questions. So this is, again, one of the most common mistakes that I see students make, is that they don't review their questions after doing them when they are prepping for the MCAT, or they maybe like look if they got it right and then move on. This is probably the biggest mistake actually that students will make. And the reason being is that it doesn't matter how many questions you get wrong before your actual MCAT. You are just trying to build as big of a knowledge base as you can and get all your mistakes out beforehand, so that by the time the MCAT comes around, you have seen the material, you have worked through it, you've done tons of questions, you know what's going to be asked of you, and there's no really better way of doing that than doing questions and getting them wrong. You should be happy when you get questions wrong, especially early on in your prep, because you know that means that you are going to learn something new every single time that you see that question and then you got it wrong, and the next time you see it, you're going to get it right. And even if you don't, you're going to learn something new every single time. So do questions. It's going to reinforce that material that you've just done, and it's also going to just put another it's another essentially building block of this knowledge base that you are building, so that by the time you are at the MCAT, you have essentially built this huge pyramid of knowledge, and you are going to ace that exam. Alright, so I know that was a long-winded explanation for just saying review the questions at the end of each chapter, but you're going to see time and time again while we're building these study schedules. And if you ever reach out to me to ask about what you should add to your study schedule, one of the things I'll always say is more questions. That is super important, and I can't stress that enough. Alright, so now that we just did essentially an hour and a half of scheduled work, you can take a little bit of break. I recommend like 5 to 10 minutes of the breaks. I didn't write them in here, so you can just assume that they would be at the beginning of the next block. It's really not too big a deal to like write in your breaks, but if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. Alright, so you know what, why don't we just write it in for now anyway. So let's say we're going to take a 30-minute break would be a big one, but we'll put it in there. Let's say it's the first day studying, starting out slow and building up that stamina. Alright, next we're going to come back, and let's say we want to do now some videos. So I'm going to put in watch Khan Academy videos on the eye. Let's say that we're moving on to physics and the eye. That's a topic that students have a lot of trouble with. It actually is a crossover between bio and physics, but I see the eye come up in the physics section a lot, where you have light and the lenses and whatnot. So definitely watch the videos on that. I feel like those are really good, and it's hard to read about this and fully grasp it. So the more videos, and again, the more repetition over here you get, the better. So whether it's watch the video, then read about it, then Google it, whatever you can do to solidify that information is going to be great. Alright, so we're going to do a half hour of videos, and then every day we want to, not every day, but at least once every other or so day, you're going to try to incorporate some cars practice. So we're going to do 3 cars passages, and the reason being is we have 30-minute time slots, 3 passages. Each cars passage should be taking you 10 minutes. So there you go, 3 cars passages in that time slot. And that's the way I would do cars when you're practicing. Just do 3 at a time. One's a little bit too short. You can't really get into the flow of what a real section would feel like. And you don't really need to always do a 90-minute section. So 30 minutes, 3 cars passages, that should be perfectly fine. And then again, what are we going to do? We're going to review those passages. Always review after you do questions. All right. So when you review cars, it's a lot of students have struggled with how to review cars. You really just want to be looking for what was your reasoning for picking an answer, and did it match the reasoning that the question bank gave you for the explanation of how they would go about it, and what information you should have used from the passage. That's really the key point for reviewing cars. Try and figure out, was there information that you should have been using from the passage, and did you actually use that information? A lot of times you'll find that you did not. You either try to do something from memory, or you kind of missed the main point there. Alright, so after you did that, we would maybe do another set of Khan Academy videos. And that could be in any topic that you feel like you are struggling with. Maybe it's something early on from Chapter 5. Let's say Chapter 5. Let's say this was solutions. You know, something like that. And maybe you wanted to watch Khan Academy videos on solutions, because earlier on, you know, you felt like you were getting it, but you got some of those questions wrong, and you wanted to, you know, try and solidify that information with some repetition. Alright, so now we're all the way up to 12 p.m. on the day, and we're going to call this lunchtime. Let's take a nice lunch break of an hour long. And then moving on to 1 p.m. right after lunch. So right after lunch, I would say, is a good time. You're fresh again. You've done good review in the morning. Let's do a half practice section. So this is another good thing to incorporate on a pretty standard basis, is about 30, and this is kind of similar to what you just did with cars, because 3 car passages would be a third of a section, but now we're going to do 30 biochem questions, and that would essentially be a half of a biochem section, and that's really helpful. Again, you're going to get practice assessing what your weaknesses are, because if you do a random block of questions from a QBank, so for example, you all, if you have this course, should have access to the UWorld QBank, and you can just go in there and choose biochem and choose 30 questions, and then it'll give you a random distribution of those questions. And that's going to be really good, again, like I just said, to assess your weaknesses, and also just practice applying the strategies and learning how to go about reading those passages, because they're not such easy reads, especially when you first start out. So we're going to do 3 biochem questions, and I'm sure you all can guess what is coming next, and that is going to be to review that section. Actually, sorry, I should put review here, because it'll take you a little bit less than an hour, just about 45 minutes, maybe a little bit more, to do those 30 questions. So I'm just going to type it again here, and then review questions. Alright, so awesome, guys. We are getting through our day. It's a very packed schedule, as you can see, but we're breaking it up. We have a lunch in there, a couple of breaks, and we're doing it in just about hour-and-a-half blocks. So now, after doing that, once you do a practice section or a half practice section, you want to really spend time reviewing. So first I would go over what you got wrong, your reasoning behind it. Again, kind of similar things I just talked about with reviewing the cars. But then you want to start doing content, so Khan Academy videos and review books, and looking at that content based on what you got wrong and really filling in those gaps of things that you didn't understand. 30 questions is a lot, especially if it's randomly distributed, so you could have lots of different topics in biochem. So you're probably going to notice what your weaknesses are pretty quickly, and a lot of the Q banks give pretty decent breakdowns of that, so you can see what questions you got wrong. Maybe it's the amino acids. Now you're going to spend some time watching videos on amino acids. Make sure you know all the properties, work on memorization. I love writing out things to memorize, so I would highly recommend trying to write out all 20 amino acids, and you should 1000% be able to do this by the MCAT. Very, very important. So you are going to spend even more time reviewing, so that's going to be basically an hour of review, and then we would be ready for another break. So we'll say a break here. And honestly, this break could be a little bit shorter because we probably only have about an hour left more at the library, but 30 minutes if that's what you need, no problem. As long as you're putting in good, effective work while you're working, it's okay to take slightly longer breaks. And that's actually another big thing that students do when they're studying that you really, really, really should try to avoid is distractions, your cell phone, talking to people. Unless you're doing some sort of group study, you really want to be focused in for your blocks that you are studying. If you are trying to do really well on the MCAT, and I know you all are, you really, really, really want to minimize distractions. And I know this isn't easy, and if you feel like you're struggling with this, again, always feel free to reach out. But you can do it. You will build up that stamina. So try and stay focused, and then really enjoy your breaks. When you're on your breaks, that's the time you can check your phone, go on Instagram, whatever you want to do. All right, so we're going to do just a little bit more review now. Maybe we're going to do, what did we do before? Chem Phys Chapter 5. So maybe we're going to now do Chem Phys Chapter 6. And again, these chapters tend to take about an hour, so I'm going to leave an hour there. And again, we want to do the questions. Now, I think it's okay. It's getting a little bit late. Maybe you're a little tired. Actually, you know what? We can get this done. One more hour or half-hour block. We're going to do questions and review. And if you can't finish it within that half hour, you will be able to finish it later tonight, that review. At 5 o'clock, it is time to go to the gym. And exercise is extremely, extremely important when when it feels like all you're doing is studying every day, especially for the MCAT. If you're spending like 4 or 5 weeks at a time where that is all you're dedicated to, you need to still be doing some other things that you enjoy, and definitely try to exercise a couple times a week, whether that's, even if you can't make it to the gym, just going on a walk, playing a sport, whatever you can think of. So here we'll put, I like to lift and then I like to play basketball, but maybe it's a spin class. Really, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, that is what you should schedule in around this time. Again, it could vary. I mean, if you want to do it at 3, that's perfectly fine. This is just a template for you guys to look over. This is not by any means what your schedule has to look like. I'm just trying to give you a nice example of how I made my days. And again, I know it's kind of long-winded. I'm giving you extra explanations, and the schedules would go pretty fast because you're just going to be replacing each day. So for example, here maybe it would be biochem. See, Tuesday, the same time slot, chapter 7, whatever it is, and you'd be keeping similar schedules. And then maybe instead of cars practice today, you would do psych soc, right? So once you get that first day planned out and figure out a good system that works for you, you will be able to make these schedules pretty fast. All right, so we just went to the gym. Now we're going to go home and shower, I would hope. Definitely hope you shower after that. And then you're going to have some dinner. Whoa, what's going on there? All right. About an hour for dinner. and then we're going to do a little bit more studying after dinner. I really like to keep it light after dinner, so this is the time that I like to review some of the notes that I took, maybe do some flashcards, and at most do like one more chapter. So let's say we're going to do biochem chapter 4, let's say we're up to. And again, chapters take about an hour. It could be different for you. So like again, if you know that it takes you an hour and a half, then that's how much time you would have to reserve for yourself. And then biochem questions and review. Again, I questions and review, I only allotted 30 minutes because they're usually only like 10 questions, so it really shouldn't take you too long. But if there are more, then by all means allow yourself more time. And then at 9 o'clock, by 9 o'clock, you really shouldn't be doing that much. Maybe flashcards, just a couple before you go to bed. And then I just want you to relax, relax. This could include Netflix, although too much TV before bed is not the best thing, but I can't be preaching that because I definitely like watching Netflix before bed. But do whatever you want to do to de-stress. You had a long, hard day of studying, and you deserve it. So that's what a sample day would look like on maybe a day that you are, or a time period where you are devoting only to MCAT studying. Obviously, if you had other work requirements or school requirements, the schedule would look a lot different. But I just wanted to show you this example because it really gets a lot in. We ended up doing 3 different chapters, a third set of a section for cars, and a half of a section for biochem with, of course, some content review. And if you go back to the top here, you're able to see that we had content review, questions, and repetition. And that repetition really comes from the content review and the review of the questions that you are going to be doing with each chapter that you do. So there's your sample schedule, guys. I hope you were able to take some pointers from that. Again, your schedule's not going to look exactly the same as mine, but this is a good sample layout, and you will again have access to this template, so don't worry. You can also make your own on Excel or on just your own calendar, or if you like keeping it old-fashioned with like one of those whiteboards, that works too. Whatever works best for you. It really doesn't matter, but you just want to have some sort of structured schedule to keep you on track and moving forward through your MCAT studies. All right, guys, awesome. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next lesson.